Scrum Masters Elite _UK, insightful perspectives on rugby, tactics, and team identity. If you love the Six Nations and the stories behind the game, subscribe to the channel. When a great team stands at a crossroads. There are moments in sport when I feel that things are no longer simply about winning or losing. A match may end after 80 minutes. The scoreboard may close the story of the game, but the questions it leaves behind can last much longer. Questions about strategy, about people, about belief, and sometimes about the very identity of a national team. What is currently happening with the England rugby team makes me think along those lines. When I read the strong opinions from former England international Andy Goode suggesting that the Rugby Football Union should consider replacing head coach Steve Borthwick, I did not see it merely as criticism. I saw something deeper, a genuine concern, a concern that many fans may also be feeling. And when this conversation is placed within the context of the Six Nations Championship and the approaching Rugby World Cup 2027, I start to wonder, is England heading in the wrong direction? Or are they simply going through a difficult phase that every sports team eventually faces?
When a winning streak becomes a distant memory, what makes me think the most is not the calls to change the head coach. Sport always has debates like that. What catches my attention is how quickly a team can change. Just a few months ago, England were being praised for a run of 12 consecutive victories. That kind of streak builds belief. It makes supporters feel that the team is moving in the right direction, but sport can be ruthless in a way that only long-time followers truly understand. 1 month of competition can completely reshape the narrative. 3 consecutive defeats to Scotland, Ireland and Italy were not just ordinary losses. They felt more like cracks appearing in a wall that once seemed extremely solid. What troubles me is the way those defeats happened. They were not narrow losses against clearly superior opponents. They were defeats that raised questions about the system, about the style of play, and about preparation. The attack lacked sharpness. The defense looked fragile. Discipline became questionable. A team once known for structure and discipline suddenly appeared to be losing its own identity, the pressure of the England jersey. I have always believed that wearing the England rugby jersey carries one of the greatest pressures in sport. It is not just a team. It is history, it is tradition. It is the expectation of millions. So when Andy Goode said that some players appear to be restricted within Steve Borthwick's system, I think that observation deserves reflection. Not because it is certainly true, but because it reflects a feeling that viewers sometimes sense when watching England play. There are matches where the players seem to follow an extremely rigid script. Everything is calculated. Everything is programmed, but elite sport sometimes requires the opposite, an instinctive moment, a bold decision, a play born from the feeling of the player on the field. If everything is locked inside data and systems, could a team unintentionally lose its creativity? That is the question many people seem to be asking. When data is not enough to win, modern sport increasingly relies on data analysis. That is undeniable. Numbers help teams understand opponents, evaluate performance, and identify areas for improvement. But I also believe data cannot fully replace the feeling of a game. A rugby match is not a mathematical problem. It is a battle of psychology, tempo, momentum, and emotion. If a team relies too heavily on tactical structure without flexibility, it can become predictable, and in a brutal tournament like the Six Nations Championship, being predictable is a major problem. When I watch teams like France or South Africa, I often notice an interesting balance. They have structure, but they also have freedom. They have tactics, but they also produce explosive moments that cannot be predicted. That balance is what makes them dangerous.
One match can change everything. The match between England and France in Paris is more than just another fixture. It feels like a test. If England win, the narrative changes dramatically. A victory over France in Paris, something England have not achieved since 2016, would be a powerful statement. It would show that the team can still respond under pressure. That belief has not disappeared. But if they lose, especially in an unconvincing performance, the pressure on Steve Borthwick will certainly increase. Not only from pundits, but from supporters. And in professional sport, public pressure can sometimes become the decisive factor. The idea of change. When Andy Goode mentioned Michael Cheika as a possible replacement, I found the idea worth considering. Cheika is a highly charismatic coach. He led Australia to the Rugby World Cup final in 2015. He understands European rugby. He understands the Premiership environment. But perhaps most importantly, he has a distinctive coaching style. Cheika is known for emotional intensity. He encourages players to trust their instincts and play with confidence. That is something many believe England currently lack. Of course, changing a head coach is always a major decision. It can bring fresh energy, but it can also create instability. So I do not think the question is simply sack or keep. It is about the long-term direction of English rugby.
When change creates the unexpected. World rugby history has seen surprising transformations before. One famous example was when Rassie Erasmus took charge of South Africa only about 18 months before the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Many people thought the time frame was too short. Yet they went on to become world champions. It shows that in sport, the right change at the right moment can sometimes create extraordinary results. But it is also important to remember that not every change leads to success. So the real question is not simply whether to change. The real question is understanding why the change is being made. The detail that makes me wonder. In this entire discussion, one small detail keeps returning to my mind. It is the apparent absence of attack coach Lee Blackett during some key moments alongside the coaching staff. For a team struggling offensively, that feels puzzling. In modern rugby, attack and defense are the two main pillars. A head coach needs both perspectives right beside them during a match. If one of those perspectives is missing during decision-making, the tactical system can become unbalanced. I do not know exactly what is happening inside the England camp. But the fact that this detail raises questions suggests that the team may lack clarity in how it operates.
Freedom, the element England might be missing. If there is one thing I hope to see from England in the next match, it is freedom, not chaos, not abandoning tactics, but freedom within structure. The best players always need space to express themselves. I still remember the moment Marcus Smith kicked the winning points to defeat Ireland at Twickenham. It was a moment where the team seemed to forget the pressure and simply play rugby. Moments like that can sometimes change an entire season, sport, and life. Thinking about this situation, I realize that sport often resembles life more than we expect. A system may work perfectly for a long time, but if it does not adapt to a changing environment, it can quickly become outdated. That does not mean the people who built the system were not talented, it simply means the world around them changed, and that lesson goes beyond rugby. It applies to all of us. For supporters, difficult periods for their favorite team are always hard to accept, but those are also the moments when loyalty is truly tested. A team is not defined only by its trophies. It is also defined by how it responds to failure. This whole situation reminds me of something very simple. Past success does not guarantee future success. A 12-match winning streak can disappear in a matter of weeks. What truly matters is how we respond when things start to fall apart. Do we dare to change, or do we try to preserve the system simply because it once worked?
A turning point approaches. The match in Paris may appear to be just another game on the schedule, but for England, it could represent a turning point. A victory could reignite belief. A defeat could trigger major changes. Whatever the result, the story of England right now is not only about tactics. It is about identity, about how a great team finds itself again under pressure and expectation. And sometimes, the most difficult moments are exactly when a team begins to redefine its future.
Thank you for following Scrum Masters Elite_UK. Rugby is not only about winning, it is also about identity and the choices made at turning points. See you in the next video.